Coach, maybe if you can kind of start us off with just some opening thoughts on the team and the direction that it's headed.
Well, we're back at it. We're practicing as normal, and guys are working hard, and gets a little bit closer every day to playing a football game. So players are in a routine with school and practice and homework, and so it seems like it's getting to be somewhat normal around here, which is refreshing. Players' effort's been really good, so just moving along day to day.
Thank you, Coach. Our first question is going to come from Jacob Unruh, the Oklahoman. Go ahead, Jacob.
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Good.
Hey, I'm kind of curious, with all the recruiting changes going on right now, you've seen recruits kind of get creative around the country and stuff. How are you encouraging kind of your recruits to get creative to maybe recruit other players to campus and your virtual recruiting and whatnot?
I'm not following you with your question.
Well, they're getting creative and recruiting each other. Are you guys kind of encouraging that too? Since we can't have them on campus?
No, I just think that's part of a process with this age group of kids. They're all in contact with each other.
So none of them are getting together they're not organizing anything, getting together, kind of finding different kids to help you guys out?
Are you asking me if our recruits are getting stuff together?
Yeah.
I don't have any idea what they do I'm not on social media. I couldn't tell you what they're doing. But I do know that most 17, 18-year-old kids are involved in all kind of different chats and things, whatever they call those, where they're communicating all the time.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Jacob. Our next caller is Chris Becker from the O'Colly. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Coach. A lot of guys, both older and younger, last year made their name on the D-line. How important is the depth of that position to the success of this defense?
Well, defensive line depth is always important based on the offenses that we see in this league with quarterback play and skill play and the speed of the game. So to keep those guys rotating in and fresh is really important to our defense.
And, Coach, how have the older guys like Cameron Murray been able to help these younger guys out, especially during this pandemic with these new times, and help them learn the defense and all that?
They seem to do a good job of coaching each other. We've always taken pride in the veteran players bringing the young players along, and they seem to be doing really well at this time.
Thank you, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question comes from Barry Trammell of the Oklahoman. Go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, Mike, you mentioned things are sort of getting back to normal. We're 19 days away from the season opener. What are the tangible ways you can see that maybe the pandemic is moving to the back of players' minds and the excitement of the season is starting to envelop everybody?
As I mentioned last week, once the conference gave us some direction of a starting date for league play and then followed up with a non-conference opponent, the players have settled in, and it's gotten better every day. We're still a ways out, but we can tell a considerable difference with our players and their focus and excitement about getting back on the field and playing football.
Have you guys talked much about what the Big Ten and the Pac-12 is going through? Do you know if they've discussed the possibility or the potential possibility of not playing, and how grateful and thankful they are that they get to play?
We haven't had a discussion about those leagues, but I will say that our players are very excited about being able to play, and they are thankful that our commissioner, our conference, our presidents and our athletic directors were willing to push forward during this time. This is something they love to do. So I do hear them talking about the positives of being able to play a season.
Thanks, Barry. Our next call is from Bill Haston of the Tulsa World. Go ahead, Bill.
There we go. Hey, Mike. Is there a chance that your defensive personnel this year, if I look on paper at what you've got coming back and the guys who are ready maybe to contribute, do you think this might be the most legitimate depth on that side of the program that you've had as the head guy?
From a depth standpoint, at where we're at right now, I'm comfortable with total number of players that have some sort of game experience that if you get into a situation where fatigue becomes a factor, you're playing in a game where the field temperature is 130 or 40 degrees, more guys have to play. Or if you unfortunately were to get into some injuries, we're as good off now as we've been in years with players that have some sort of experience or maturity to be able to play in a game.
I mean, I remember looking at your two deep in some seasons granted, most of these examples were quite a while back, and thinking, man, they better not get hurt here and they better not get hurt there. And you know what I mean? And you're going to rely on a lot of snaps from certain guys like little Donald Booker. You remember him. I mean, you could hardly even put him, afford to rest him at all. It just seems like you have finally reached a point that you've been striving for a long time on that side.
We're moving in that direction with guys that are mature. Again, this is a senior defense for the most part. There's a lot of experience out there, guys that have played significant snaps, and I am excited about our depth. That is correct.
Thanks, Bill. Our next question is from Robert Allen of Triple Play Sports. Go ahead, Robert. Think you're mute.
Mike, aside with all the things that have gone on in the documentary and all of that, just through the course of the pandemic and the way you've had to go about things, the Zoom meetings, all of the things organizationally, has any of this changed the way you think about the way you do your job from a structure standpoint? And maybe you'll change some things around either to become more time efficient or just to become more efficient, period?
Oh, I think it forces us into thought with different areas, but we've had tremendous success. Coach Glass, Rob Glass, and I have been here together 16 years. And so our culture and our layout, our plan, the discipline, the structure that we have here has been very profitable for Oklahoma State football and our athletic department and our university. So as we listen and watch and see, we continue to go back. This is who we are. This is what we do. And for the most part, it solidifies that our process has been really good over the last 16 years. There's not a lot of changes that we've made other than players not being in the same room at the same time, and some of the different ways that we protect the players to the best of our ability outside of football through education. But the core structure of Oklahoma State football and what it's been for the last 16 years hasn't changed any at all.
The follow-up to that is, and I know you can't talk about names, but you're recruiting, even though you haven't been able to go off campus and recruits haven't been able to come on to yours or at least see you personally. Some have come on just to look around. Are you amazed and how much, do you feel your recruiting staff has been successful despite all the curveballs thrown at them?
Everybody's done a really good job. Our recruiting staff with Todd Bradford and his ideas and thought process and him working with our assistant coaches. the plans that we've come up with, virtual tours, different ways to communicate with players and parents without them being able to come to our campus and or without us being able to get down in their areas, has been fantastic. It's been better over the last 3 months, 4 months than, gosh, maybe in the last 10 years here. I think another side note to that is doing the show with ESPN has really helped us. The young men that we recruit, 17, 18-year-old young men, some 19-year-olds at some 2-year schools, they follow shows like the one that's going on here at Oklahoma State. And that marketability and inside look at Cowboy football has really helped our recruiting and gained a lot of attention across the country.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Robert. Our next call is Scott Wright from the Oklahoman. Go ahead, Scott.
Mike, on the topic of defensive depth, sounds like Christian Holmes has come in and fit in really well. I wonder if you could add a little bit to what he's bringing to your cornerback position.
He brings a lot of experience, game day reps, but more importantly, he's a perfect example of a young man that understands what it takes to be successful at this level. He's very mature. He's very intelligent. He knows what his goals are. He wants the team to win, but he also wants to play this game for a number of years. So his work ethic throughout the summer, his verbal leadership, and also leadership on the field has been fantastic for our team. Very few times can we have a young man come into our culture and earn the respect of the players based on his work ethic and leadership skills in a short period of time. And Christian's been able to do that. So he's one of those young men that understands things don't always go the way you want them. Sometimes you have to be willing to work with others. But he continues to have a great work ethic and a great attitude, and he's been a tremendous addition to our team up to this point. With
he and Jarek and Rodarius, has that been a pretty intense competition with all those guys going at it?
You know, Scott, our ones and twos split reps on defense. We get so many reps in a game that if you have legitimate two deep going into a game, the ones might play 50 snaps and the twos might play 35. So the way that defensive football was played here at Oklahoma State, those guys need a break. And so they coach each other, they challenge each other, they continue to work to develop each other. Sure, a guy may want to be the starter, but they get so many reps in practices and now in games that it works as an advantage for us more than a disadvantage.
Thanks, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Scott. Next question comes from Garen Emig of the Tulsa World. Go ahead, Garen.
Mike, with the disjointed nature of the offseason for everyone in college football, do you have a sense that when the actual first games are played that the football will also look a little more disjointed, discombobulated, or do you think that the structure will be totally what you're used to seeing?
Are you referring to X's and O's, actual?
Well, just you think players may have to ad-lib a little bit more, maybe because they're less familiar with systems or structures, or are you guys? Do you think that coaches will have time to teach their guys this is how we do it within the framework of the offense or defense, that kind of thing? Will there be more ad-libbing, I guess is what I'm asking.
I think it'll look exactly like the way it is with schools pushed back a couple weeks from what would be a traditional start date. Then typical August practice sessions have been in effect now for 3 weeks. So everybody's catching up. If we had games this weekend, I think that it might look a little different, but with an additional 2 weeks of preparation, I'm going to guess that people are going to be back on track. I feel comfortable with what's happening here at Oklahoma State.
Okay, appreciate it.
Our next question comes from Sam Kahn of ESPN.com. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, Mike. Last week, NCAA Division I Council had ruled to allow an extra year of eligibility for athletes in fall sports. I'm curious what you think of that and what impacts it may have on your roster, down the road.
There's so many moving parts now with what's going on. It's really hard for us to digest all the different information and how it affects us. I'm not sure what the parameters are going to be at this point on it. There's a group of us that just play the game of wait and see until we get some sort of resolution on how those affect our numbers down the road. And then we all try to adjust as we move forward. So I'm not sure that I know enough about it at this time to say one way or the other.
Cool. And then also as far as your team goes with the talent you got back and just what you've seen so far, what do you think the potential is for your team this fall?
We have a number of veteran players. We've got guys that can make plays, and I think it's like any other season. You get ready to go, you play hard, you hope that your team stays healthy, gives you a chance to compete with the best players on every Saturday. And I'm excited about the energy and the discipline of our team at this point, which usually leads to us having a successful season.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Sam. Our next question comes from Cody Nagel of Go Pokes. Go ahead, Cody.
Hey, Mike, can you provide an update on Colin Clay, and has he received a waiver from the NCAA, or is he expected to have to sit out this season?
I don't have any information on Colin at this time. We're kind of in a wait-and-see game.
I guess, how has he looked so far in fall camp and practices and stuff?
He seems to be doing well. He's on a defensive line where we have quite a bit of depth, so he rotates in and he stays fresh, which is an advantage for all those big guys. I like his attitude. I like his work ethic at this time. And hopefully his waiver will get approved at some point, and he can be a part of our team on game day.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Cody. Our next question comes from Frank Bonner of the Tulsa World. Go ahead, Frank.
Hey, Mike. I know working through the pandemic has been difficult for the entire program, but what's it been like for your first-year players who are dealing with the pandemic, but also, just trying to navigate being a first-year college athlete?
I think it's been easier for those players because when they got here, they weren't in a routine. The adjustment was for the veteran guys that were in a routine in our system. Our calendar with coaches and players is done 1 year in advance. And so the guys that have been in the system were creatures of habit. So the adjustment for them has been more than the first-year players. From the standpoint, the first-year players really don't know what our routine is. They won't learn that until after the season. Hopefully, if the pandemic settles down a little bit and we get into a normal schedule, then they will learn that system.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Frank. Down to our last 5 minutes. Our next question will come from Barry Trammell of the Oklahoman. Go ahead, Barry. Barry, I believe you're on mute. All right, moving on. Next question comes from Bill Hayson of the Tulsa World.
Mike, Sam asked you about potential. When you look at the stretch line before practice, or you're watching them in a live period, and you take inventory of your personnel and the way they're going about their work, does it look in August now like it has looked in August with some of your very best teams, like 9, 10, 11, 2017, those teams?
I think we've got a mature team that's got quite a few players that can perform on game day. We've got depth. again, the team chemistry, their willingness to compete and work with each other, the importance of how they feel about the guy standing next to them on game day. At Oklahoma State, those areas have always been huge factors in our success. I think we have really good coaches. I like where we're at as a staff. I think we have good concepts. We're starting to get back to real football now based on being in a third week of practice. So I'm comfortable with where we're at. I don't play in the games. It's all about the players. It's the decisions that they make. So we'll see what direction they go with it. Football will always be a team game. It has to be a game that's played by unselfish players that are willing to lay it on the line for somebody else. And so as we develop over the next 2 weeks, if they put themselves in that position, then they should have if they go a different direction, then you just kind of make it through the season and go on down the road.
So 10 days or so since your O-line, too deep, got some changes on it, and you had, a week or so to take inventory there as well and look at what you have and whatever you've done to move guys around. So how do you feel about the O-line now, Mike? Now that what is it? 19 days? Is that what Barry said or Garen said? Anyway,
I don't know. Yeah.
So where do you stand with regard to the way you look at your offensive line now?
We have a fantastic coach in Coach Dickey, and I have complete faith in him that he'll move some guys around and come up with a group here in a week or 10 days, put it together and get ready to go play. We've got young players in our program that haven't competed much on game day, but they have some talent. They're hungry. They're aggressive. They're willing to do whatever it takes to be successful. So it's our responsibility to find guys to put our offense in a position to have success based on who's available. And I have complete faith in Coach Dunn and Coach Dickey and their ability to get that done before we play Tulsa.
Coach Dickey going to be, Coach Dunn, upstairs or downstairs on game day, Mike? Or has that been determined?
Coordinators will always be upstairs from this point moving forward.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Down to our last couple questions. Next question is going to come from Scott Wright of the Oklahoman. Go ahead, Scott.
Mike, on that topic, how has Casey handled the transition, and what do you see that's maybe different from him in his new role?
Up until this point, he's his work ethic, his planning ability, his structure, his discipline with the coaching staff and the players has been excellent. He's still on a honeymoon. We haven't played a game yet. I mean, he hadn't made the calls on third and medium, hadn't made fourth down calls yet, hadn't made calls inside the 5-yard line. So we don't have any idea from that standpoint. But what we know is that his ability to coordinate with our coaching staff and relate with our players has been fantastic up to this point. I'll be able to give you more information after game 6, but I'm very pleased with where we're at and where he's at up to this point.
Do you feel like he'll have the opportunity to put his fingerprints on this a little bit, like some of your past coordinators have?
Well, Scott, our offense has stayed the same since I guess back whenever the years that I was calling plays. I can't even remember what years those were. And then we made some adjustments when Whedon came in here, and then we meshed those two offenses together. And then the majority of our terminology and system and what we believe in has stayed the same based on who the quarterback is. We vary our plan of attack to the strength of our players and our quarterback. And then each coordinator has had a little bit that they feel comfortable with. And I've always allowed them that opportunity based on they're the play callers, and that's what they have to do to develop themselves as a play caller. And so he'll have certain things that he feels very comfortable with. We'll know a lot more based on 4 or 5 games of experience. You can talk or think a lot about what plays you're going to call, but you kind of go back to what you believe in and who you are in most cases. So about halfway through the season, we'll have a pretty good feel for what he's going to put, what his touch would be, I guess, on our offensive schemes.
Thanks, Mike.
Our final question comes from Robert Allen. Go ahead, Robert.
I wanted to ask you, because this is usually the time you're able to go through the first-year players. I'm not talking about Christian Holmes or a transfer, the guys who are brand new, the freshmen, the pups, any that have stuck out that might have played well enough to play themselves into rotation.
I think we'll have 5 to 7 guys that will play. Know a lot more in about a week. We just went full pads a couple days ago. So we haven't gotten into, what we would call real football for enough days, significant days to find out where we're at. I would see 5 to 7 guys being able to play, compete as a true freshman and get some time in the games. I will say that we really like our freshman class. I like their work ethic. I like their attitude. I like their willingness to form themselves into our culture here at Oklahoma State. And I'm excited about their future.
Thanks, Robert. Coach, do you have any final thoughts of things maybe that we missed on this call that you wanted to talk about kind of while we have everyone here together?
I'm good. Good talking to you guys. I look forward to visiting with you next week. Y'all have a good one.